Anyways, the next step in torquing this is going to be putting in the aluminum bolts. I'm going to put in bolts 1 through 19. I'm going to tighten them down 3 Newton meters. And then I'm going to apparently go around again, make sure they're all at 3 Newton meters. And that's just to make sure, like, as you're tightening it down, the gasket's going to settle a little bit. The first bolts you torque down to 3 Newton meters are going to lower to, like, I don't know, a lower Newton meter setting. And so you just got to go through it twice. And then after that, you're going to torque down bolts 1 through 19, 90 degrees further. That's all it says. Whenever I stumble upon a thing that says 90 degrees further, I always mark it with my pen or whatever. I have like a shoe marker thing. And that's because if it's just a torque spec like 9 Newton meters, you can just, if you don't know if you hit it already, you just put the torque wrench on it, twist it, and then if it says 9 Newton meters before spinning, and then you know it's good. But if it's something like a rotation, then you don't know what that final torque was going to be. So I absolutely recommend marking down the bolts. Now, I'm going to do my best to show you what order to do it in, but it's going to be really challenging, and this is why I recommend you just printing out the procedure yourself so that you don't have to rely on just me pointing out where the bolts are and what torquing spec to do it to. I got the correct part for this now. I can go ahead and put this in. One thing about it, the spring, apparently it compresses when you actually get it in there. See that? And it looks like it's trying to like not go down all the way. So it's something you gotta watch. Just make sure that, yeah, when you tighten it down there, make sure that everything is going good and it's not binding, it's not breaking. I got this part to go in. This part was actually pretty tricky. It's worth adding this to the video. That's obviously just some oil spill. This goes to the oil cooler eventually. I'll wipe this up. But yeah, see that? It's all bottomed out and everything. This is there. I haven't torqued it, I just have it hand tight. This thing is a bit tricky because I'll show you with the old part. Let's see. Okay, so see that? So you press it up with you press the O-ring in there, and then that top piece of plastic. Let's see. That top piece of plastic right there, that plastic lip tries to bind, and then the spring that you're compressing just makes it bind even worse. So what I did is I got one of these, and with my right hand, let's see, with my right hand I basically pressed it like that, and then I tightened this one with my other hand with my tool that I had, just getting it hand tight. And I pressed it, tightened it, pressed it, tightened it, and just inched it in there and wiggled it in there until it got past that plastic lip I was showing you earlier. This is the tool that I had, just this long T30. I was just, torquing it down, and that worked. The next step in the torquing sequence is to torque this bolt down, so I'll go ahead and torque that. So it turns out my torque wrench does not go down to 3 Newton meters. I can get a hold of another one that does, but in the meantime, I'm going to be prepping this part to be put back on the engine. I got some gaskets from FCP Euro so that I can just swap these gaskets out rather than replacing this whole part. These parts are super durable, they never break. But gaskets break all the time, they just stop sealing up properly, so you gotta replace them. And you can see this gasket too. When you look closely, I don't know how good you can tell in the video, but this gasket at certain places is flattened out. Right there you can see it. Yeah, it's flattened out. I can't remember if the sealing flange was... Oh yeah, look at that. That's flattened out right there. I don't remember if the sealing flange was super oily right here. It probably was for all I know, but I got this part off anyways. I'm going to put new gaskets on. I'm going to just use that pick there, just pick them off, clean it as good as I possibly can, and then throw the new gaskets on there. Replacing this thermostat could definitely be a good idea while we're here anyways. I don't know if you can though. I don't know if you have to just get this whole unit, or if you can just replace that thermostat. So it turns out you actually have to remove this thermostat in order to replace this gasket. You can see it sits like that. This thin part is underneath the thermostat. And this does matter which way it goes, by the way. If you put it on upside down, it doesn't work. And you can basically just put it on there and see that part right here. It goes up a little bit. So same with right there. And then this part. See that part? And then this, just make sure it matches. One thing I do recommend when you're pulling this thing out, this part of the plastics right there. When you're pulling this gasket out, see how thin this plastic piece is? You're trying to reuse this, so you're trying to reuse this unit. So what you want to do is you want to go like this, press this way, so that way you're putting pressure right there, this thick part rather than this thin part. If you come in the other way and you try to go like that, you're putting pressure on this thin plastic part, you're going to break it. You're going to be stuck buying this brand new part. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You want to pull this way, not that way. This right there, that is a T20 for the thermostat bolts. So I got this part pulled off, this thing. The torque specs on this are super low. This is an unserviceable part, and so I doubt you're going to find any torque specs online or anywhere. Whenever I run into stuff like that, what I do is I get my torque wrench. I get this type is awesome. It'll tell you the torque as you're torquing, and so I loosened it with my torque wrench, and I could see the torque that it was, and it was 1.5 Newton meters, which is super low. When you're dealing with these low torque specs, you basically need one of these. We got Snap-on, the super expensive one. And yeah, I could see as I was loosening it, it got to 1.5 Newton meters before it loosened. And so that's what I'm going to torque it down to. You can see this thing, again, we got thin plastic parts here. You don't want to pick this way where you're putting pressure right there. You want to pick, I picked right here just because we got some solid plastic here. Yeah, just be mindful of that so you don't have to break this and buy a new part. This does have like some crevices in here. You got to make sure that when you actually stick this gasket on, that it goes in each one of these tabs there. You got to make sure that those tabs are actually pressed in there all along the perimeter. So I got this smaller torque wrench over here. I did the first round. Actually, I'm on step 7 for the torque specs. Now at this point, I need to go through these 19 bolts and rotate them 90 degrees while following the pattern. I'm going to mark each one of these with this after I've rotated it 90 degrees just in case I mix one up. I tightened down 19 of the aluminum bolts. Now I need to remove the steel bolts, the 3 of them. That was that one right there, and then that one right there. You can see I'm marking these as I torque them down. You absolutely want to do that. I got the steel bolts pulled out. I got these aluminum ones put in. Torquing sequence is pretty much the same. You do this one 3 Newton meters, 3 Newton meters, 3 Newton meters, and then you do 90, 90, 90, and that's it. The next step is going to include installing the front main seal. I purchased this kit, the T40048A. It didn't come in a box for some reason, it just came in a bag. So I actually purchased a box I'm going to put these in. But for this vehicle, you're going to need the T40048A, T40048-2, T40048-7, and then the 2 bolts. And I'll show you how this works. You grab this, notice the direction, you put it on here, you put that on here, then you can like slowly push this down. Let's see, yeah, you wiggle this down slowly, like I'm doing here. There it goes, see that? Now you can pull this off, and then you put this at the engine, and then you get this thing, and you come in behind. Alright, I'll put this on the engine, and then I'll start recording again. So these bolts are 13 millimeter. I got this piece. You put it on. Notice the direction I'm putting it on. It's pretty simple though. You put this on. See how that's going there? Yeah, this is like staying. And then you get your other tool, this one, and then you slide that through those with the 2 bolts. I'm not going to be able to record this step because I'm just doing this alone, but I'm going to rotate this one so that these holes line up with the holes that are already there, and then I'll begin recording again. I have this in. I was not able to show this, but when I push this down, these bolts are not long enough to be hitting the threads, and they do that on purpose. You actually have to push on this, and you literally start that just by pushing this. You push it enough to where the threads begin, and then you can begin to thread these. The way you do this is you rotate this one half a rotation, then this one half a rotation, and then this one and this one. You keep going back and forth just until it's bottomed out. Once it's bottomed out, then you're done. You don't have to crank down on these at all. I got this all bottomed out. You can see that. Honestly, I don't recommend doing half rotations. I recommend doing like a quarter rotation or less each time. And you just bounce back and forth. It doesn't take very long. It goes there till you bottom out, and then you're good. You can pull these bolts out, get your tool out of the way, and you're done. Front main seal is good. I got my part pulled out. That gets my tool. Now it's time to install the water pump. I got brand new bolts here like it recommends. The torquing spec on this water pump, I wrote some stuff down here. You could take a look. You know, that was for the front main seal. We got that done. Water pump pulley. Okay, here we are, water pump. So the instructions say, they don't even give a torquing sequence, but they say 9 Newton meters, and so they say tighten in stages, tighten it to 9 Newton meters. Whenever sequences say stuff like that, I just do crisscross, and then I don't know, I'll do halfway 4 Newton meters all the way around, and then I'll do 9 Newton meters all the way around, and then I'll do another round of 9 Newton meters just to make sure that nothing loose end, because we got a gasket there. It's gonna bottom out. You know, we can lower the torques on the other bolts as you're tightening it down. So that's what I'll do for this one, 9 Newton meters. And just for your reference, the part number for that water pump is right here, water pump these 10 bolts. Those are the part number for the bolts. And then the 3 pulley bolts, those are the part number for that one. The water pump is on. Everything's torqued. At this point, before putting everything on up front, I'm actually going to put on the intake manifold first, because the intake manifold is easier to take off. It's a barely easier to take off when you can have this thing pulled off. So that's what I'm going to do now. We'll do the intake manifold, everything up top. We'll do everything up front, and then we'll just put together the, I guess, like the pipes and the fan shroud and everything, and then this thing will be done.